The beast in the dark. The sky above Varkanine was always gray, filled with thick clouds that rumbled but never cried. The forests below were darker than night, with twisted trees and giant roots that reached like fingers. And in those woods, something terrible lived, something every alien feared. The locals called it the Howler, but no one had ever truly seen it. Only broken bones, half-eaten scouts, and frightened whispers remained. Even soldiers from powerful species avoided that forest. They built fences, sent drones, even dropped explosives, yet nothing worked. Every month, someone disappeared, and no one came back the same. Then came the humans. Their colony ship landed just outside the danger zone. Most settlers stayed away from the woods, warned again and again by alien patrols, but one boy, just 13, didn't listen. His name was Eli. He wasn't tall or strong, but he had sharp eyes and a curious heart. He grew up reading about Earth's wild beasts, lions, wolves, bears, and loved them all. He didn't believe in ghost stories, not even ones told by trembling alien guards. To him, danger wasn't something to fear, it was something to understand. The first time Eli heard the growl, it was past midnight. He had sneaked out of his tent, holding nothing but a flashlight and a backpack of food. The sound was deep and low, like a machine grinding through bones. The air grew cold, and even the bugs went silent. But Eli stood still, whispering softly, "I'm not here to hurt you." The trees around him shook, not from wind, but from something moving fast. Circling him, he turned slowly, scanning the shadows. His heart beat loud in his chest, but his feet didn't run. Then it appeared, between two trees, almost blending with the darkness itself. Eyes like glowing coals, fur black with streaks of silver, muscles tight like cables. The beast was bigger than anything Eli had seen. Larger than an earth bear, with tusks like curved knives and claws that cracked stone. Any sane creature would run, but Eli didn't. He slowly knelt down, reached into his bag, and pulled out a protein bar. He unwrapped it, held it out in his palm, and said gently, "You hungry?" The beast growled again, louder this time. Its breath came out like steam, its paws leaving marks that sizzled the ground, and yet stepped forward. The watching cameras from the alien outpost went wild. Officers screamed, called for alert, aimed weapons at the forest, but before they could fire, the beast did something no one expected. It sat right in front of the boy. It sat down like a giant hound, its eyes still locked on him, but the growl faded. The jungle held its breath. Even the machines paused, as if unsure what they were seeing. Eli smiled carefully, placed the food on the ground, and backed up. The beast sniffed it, licked once, and slowly ate. Then it looked back at the boy, not with hunger, but with curiosity. For 10 minutes, they stared at each other. Then the beast turned and vanished into the dark, as silently as it came when Eli returned to the colony. Soldiers rushed him, shouting questions. The adults scolded him. The aliens panicked. They locked down the gates, ordered him to stay inside, but Eli just said, "He's not a monster." That night, all eyes watched the forest, waiting for an attack, but nothing came. No growls, no screams, no broken fences, only silence. And in that silence, Eli stared at the trees again. Not with fear, but with wonder. Something had changed, and deep in the woods, glowing eyes watched the colony not with hate, but with memory, because for the first time, the beast had been seen not as a monster, but as a creature, and one boy had dared to reach out. They heard the growl. He offered his hand. The rain fell sideways on Varkanine, thick and heavy like melted steel. Thunder didn't boom from the sky, hissed from beneath the ground, and through it all, Eli walked into the forest again, his clothes soaked, his steps. No one dared follow. No one dared stop him. because everyone had seen the footage. The beast, massive and born of nightmares, had not killed him. It had accepted his offering and vanished into the dark, to the aliens watching from their bunkers. This was madness. To Eli, it was just the beginning. He wasn't chasing a legend anymore. He was returning to a friend. As lightning lit the twisted trees, Eli stopped at the same clearing where he first met the beast. He took off his backpack, slowly opened it, and placed down another protein bar. But this time, he added a thermal blanket, a small lantern, and a metal comb. "Thought you might be cold," he whispered, sitting cross-legged, his face wet with rain. The woods replied with silence. No birds, no wind, no steps. Then, just when even Eli thought maybe the creature had left, there was a low growl, not close, not loud, but deep enough to shake his bones. He smiled, not scared, and looked toward the sound. "I brought snacks," he said, voice steady, "and I think you need a name." The growl grew closer, shaping itself into breath. Branches bent without snapping. Mud shifted under great weight, and then, like shadows breaking open, wreck appeared. Eli didn't call him that yet. But that was the name that would shake the galaxy soon. The beast stood just a few meters away. Fur-soaked eyes, glowing gold and cautious, his giant paws stepped forward slowly. Testing the ground like it remembered pain, Eli didn't move, didn't speak. He just tilted his head and offered his hand, palm up, fingers open. Rock stared at it, not blinking, his nostrils flared, smelling salt, metal, and trust. Then, after long seconds, he moved his massive head down slowly and nudged Eli's hand with the side of his snout. No bite, no roar, just breath, heavy and warm from inside the colony walls. A dozen alien eyes widened. They had watched in silence, waiting for the moment the boy screamed, but no scream came, only stillness. One of the alien officers whispered, "It accepted him." Another said, "That's not possible." But Eli and the beast didn't care for what was possible. They just sat there, one boy, one monster. And the quiet rain, Eli reached into his bag again. Pulling out a meat strip, he broke it in half and tossed the bigger piece toward the creature. Rock sniffed it once, then gently took it between his teeth. Chewing slowly, then, unexpectedly, he made a sound something between a grunt and a sigh. It wasn't angry, it wasn't scared, it was content. "I knew you weren't bad," Eli said softly, leaning back against a tree. "You're just lonely." The beast blinked, then laid down his entire body, stretching like a collapsed wall of muscle. His tail curled close, claws retracted, and his eyes half closed. He wasn't watching the forest anymore. He was watching the boy. From that moment, Eli came back every night, sometimes with food, sometimes with just his voice. He read stories, played soft music on an old earth pad, and once even danced. The beast never joined in, but always watched, always listened. The other humans thought he was cursed. The aliens believed he had cast a spell, but neither knew the truth. Eli wasn't controlling the beast. He was healing it. One evening, as the boy brushed dirt and blood from a wound near the beast's leg, he found something strange. A metal shard embedded deep under fur and skinned. Rusted, blinking faintly. It wasn't natural, and it wasn't alien wildlife. It was tech, weapon tech. His heart beat faster, but not from fear. It made sense now. The beast wasn't born a killer. He had been made one. Someone used you. Eli whispered, wiping the wound gently. And when they lost control, they left you here. The beast didn't growl, didn't bite. He just looked away, his eyes sad. It was the first time Eli realized this monster had a memory. And it hurt. Back in the colony, aliens began debating what to do. Some wanted the beast destroyed, others wanted it captured. But one young alien commander said something few expected. If that boy can sit beside death and live, maybe we've judged it too quickly. And so, a quiet shift began. The monster in the woods was no longer just fear and shadow. It was a living thing, with scars and silence. And the only one who saw that truth was a human child. Eli didn't see himself as brave, he just saw pain, and he chose to answer it with kindness. The boy who played with death the aliens called him the Whisperer of Monsters. Some said he was cursed, others believed he had powers. But the truth was far more human. Eli was just a boy who sat beside death and smiled. By now, everyone on Varkanine knew his name, not because he was special, but because the most feared creature in the galaxy followed him like a shadow. Rak the beast that made elite warriors tremble walked beside Eli as if they were born from the same mother. No leash, no chain, no commands. Just understanding. Aliens gathered behind fences and trees, eyes wide with disbelief. Children hid. Behind parents, soldiers kept fingers on triggers, but Rak never growled at them. He stayed close to Eli, calm and alert, only baring his teeth when someone raised a weapon. Eli would always raise his hand then. A single word, easy, and Rak would back down. The beast trusted no one else, only the boy who had once walked into the storm and offered a snack. At the edge of the colony, Eli built a resting place, a quiet patch between trees. With flat stones and a small stream, he placed soft leaves for Rak, set up a solar lamp, and visited every day. He brought food, fixed wounds, and sometimes just sat in silence. That silence healed something ancient in the creature. But not everyone welcomed the change. General Threx of the Alvari Council arrived with 10 armored guards. A battle-hardened alien with scales like iron and a heart colder than space. He had lost men to the beast years ago. And he came to finish what was started. This is a trick, Threx growled, his voice sharp like broken glass. Beasts do not befriend prey, they play with it. Eli stood his ground. A child facing warriors. No, sir, he said calmly. He's not playing, he's protecting. Threx laughed without humor. Then let's see if your pet obeys when I order him to kneel. He raised a sonic blade and pointed it at Rak. The beast's fur bristled, ears pinned back, and eyes locked on the weapon. Eli stepped between them before the growl could rise. Don't, he said softly. Not to Threx, but to Rak. The beast stopped. Paws, digging into dirt, body tense but still. Threx stared, frozen. The creature had obeyed, without pain, without control. It listens to the boy, a soldier whispered. No, Threx said slowly. It follows him. The difference was everything. After that, things changed again. Curious aliens began approaching from a distance. Mothers brought fruit as gifts. Engineers brought tools to examine Rak's tech-infested scars. But no one touched him without Eli's permission. Respect had grown, not from fear, but from awe. One young alien girl, with soft blue eyes and shaking hands, stepped forward one afternoon. She held out a necklace made from shells and old wires for the beast. She said in a trembling voice. Eli took it, thanked her, and turned to Rak. Mind if I dress you up? He joked. The creature lowered his head, allowing the necklace to be placed gently around his thick neck. He blinked slowly, then made that strange rumbling sound again. The colony called it a purr. Eli called it trust, deep in the forest, away. From watching eyes, Eli continued treating Rak's wounds. Each time he removed a metal shard, a small scar healed. Each time he spoke gently, the beast relaxed more. He began to notice little things. Rak responded to music, turned his head at certain words, and once even chased butterflies. This was not a killing machine. This was a life that had been broken, then abandoned. One evening, under starlight, Eli whispered, "Do you even remember who made you?" Rock said nothing, of course, but he looked away, like the question had weight. That was the first time Eli wondered, was Rock the only one of his kind? The next day, a transmission arrived, encrypted and urgent. It carried a warning from the outer colonies, bioweapon ID number A97 cited, Rock confirmed active, and with I-10 order from the galactic warlords, recover the asset or terminate immediately. They were coming, not for Eli, but for Rock, and this time, they weren't bringing questions, they were bringing guns. Eli sat with Rock at the stream that night, feeding him quietly. The beast's body had healed more than it had in years, but his eyes still carried old shadows. Eli leaned back and sighed. They want to take you. Rock growled low, like thunder trapped in a cave. Eli reached out, stroking his fur gently. They'll have to go through me first, and for the first time in recorded history, a human child was marked in alien records, not as prey, not as a civilian, but as protector of a weapon the galaxy feared, and maybe, just maybe, the only soul who could rewrite its fate. Asterisk, the secret behind the monster before the beast had a name. It had a purpose, and before Eli offered food, someone else had offered chains. It started with a dream, a weapon that could think, track, adapt, and destroy. The galaxy's old warlords wanted something silent, something born from nature but guided by tech. So they built it, deep in labs buried under black suns. They took muscle from predators, nerves from hunters, and added steel where bone used to be. And what rose from that was called a 97. But the beast never chose that name. It never chose anything until now, while the aliens debated and military orders buzzed through space. Eli sat beside Rock with a datapad in his lap. He had taken blood samples, scanned Rock's implants, and traced old codes buried in the circuits under his skin, and what he found made his heart race. Inside the metal near Rock's shoulder, there was a buried transmitter, still active, still sending signals. Someone had been tracking him this entire time. Eli looked at the beast, who lay beside him with eyes half closed. "You were never wild," he whispered. "You were released." The boy opened the back panel of the scanner, pulled out a small wire tool, and began working. He wasn't a trained tech, but he had learned from Earth's junkyards. He moved slowly, carefully, brushing past layers of fur and metal. Each spark told him how close he was to the core, and then knit, blinked, a red light pulsing, hidden under years of dirt and damage. Eli stared at it, breath shallow. He didn't know what would happen when he touched it, but he knew he had to try. He reached in and disconnected it. The light faded for the first time in years. Rock's signal went dark, and somewhere far in space, a warship blinked on its control screen. Unit offline, it read, and alarms began to sound. Back in the forest, Rock lifted his head, ears twitching. Something inside him shifted. Like a tightrope being cut, he stood slowly, stretched, then walked to the stream and stared at his reflection. For the first time, he didn't look confused or trapped. He looked awake. Eli watched in silence, then whispered, "You're free." Later that night, he uploaded everything he had found into the colony's records. He didn't care if the aliens read it. He wanted the truth known. Rock was not just a beast. He was proof of cruelty, proof of power abused. When the council saw the data, panic spread. The creation of Rock had been illegal, banned under peace accords signed centuries ago. Whoever built him had broken every rule in the galaxy's book. But no one knew who, because all records of a 97's creators had been deleted long ago, and that meant one thing: someone didn't just build Rock. They erased themselves afterward. The question now wasn't just what Rock was, it was who wanted him back. At dawn, 3 stealth ships entered Varkanine's orbit. No flags, no codes, just black holes and silent engines. They weren't here to ask, They were here to take. The colony scanners picked up the movement and sirens howled. Eli was still in the forest, brushing Ruck's fur and humming an old Earth tune, when a soldier burst into the trees, panting. Armor cracked. "Boy, you need to run," the alien gasped. "They're here for him." Eli looked at the soldier, then at Rock. The beast was already standing, tail stiff, breath slow. He had heard the engines. He remembered that sound. Eli shook his head. "I'm not running." The soldier grabbed his arm. "You don't understand. They won't just take him, they'll kill anyone who stands in the way." Eli stepped back, placing a hand on Ruck's side. "Then let them try." The soldier paused, eyes locked on the giant creature beside the boy. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon. "I hope you know what you're doing," he said quietly. Eli didn't answer. He turned to Rock and said, "We don't run." At that moment, a shadow passed over the trees. One of the black ships hovered low, lights scanning the forest. A voice echoed through speakers, sharp and cold. "Return the asset or be marked as hostile." Eli picked up a small stone and tossed it at the ship. "His name is Rock," he shouted, "and he's not yours." The trees exploded with sound as the ship opened fire, not to kill, but to scare. Leaves burned, branches fell, and Rock roared loud and furious, not like a machine, not like a monster, but like something alive, protecting what he loved. The next minutes would change the colony forever, because when the galaxy sent darkness, a boy and a beast stood together, and the stars would remember what happened next. The War Rises Again started with a shadow. Not on the ground, but over the hearts of everyone who looked up. The black ships hovered like birds of prey, silent but full of death. They made no announcements, no demands, only cold, scanning lights, and weapons that hummed with hunger. Every alien in the colony backed away from the trees. Every human reached for shelter, except one boy on the beast who stood beside him. Eli stared at the ships like someone seeing an old nightmare return. He knew they weren't here for diplomacy. They were here to erase what should not have existed, to reclaim Rock or destroy him trying. Rock stood still, tail lowered, eyes locked on the shadows above. His body was ready to fight, but his breath was slow. He remembered these machines. They had raised him in cages, punished him with shocks, tested his rage with endless blood. But now he wasn't in a lab. He was beside the only creature that had ever looked at him with kindness. The first strike came without warning. A beam of blue heat slammed into the forest floor, setting trees ablaze. Eli was thrown back by the blast. Coughing as smoke filled the air, Rock leaped over him, claws digging into the ground as he roared one that shook the skies. Not just anger, not just fear. This forest lit up with fire and metal. Soldiers in black armor dropped from the ships, moving fast, speaking no words. They formed a circle around the boy and the beast, weapons raised, but before they could fire, Rock was already in motion. He moved like lightning through mud. Claws swiped one soldier into the trees. Another he crushed with a slam of his tail. They fired stun rounds, plasma bolts, and net traps, but Rock dodged, broke, tore through them. He was not an animal anymore. He was a force. Eli crawled to safety behind a fallen log, watching every moment with wide eyes. He didn't cheer, didn't scream. He just clenched his fists and prayed Rock would survive from the colony walls. Alien commanders watched the battle. Some wanted to launch missiles. Others wanted to seal the gates. But Commander Drexa, young officer with deep scars and deeper wisdom, stood up and said, "We sent him alone." Another officer asked, "Who?" "The boy," Drex replied. "He stood for the beast when we called it evil. And now the beast stands for all of us." He turned to his troops and barked, "Send backup for the invaders." Not the creature. The colony gates opened. and alien fighters rushed into the woods for the first time in history. 3 different species fought not against the monster but beside it. Together, they pushed the black-armored soldiers back. But the ships weren't finished. One of them activated a containment field. Locking Rock inside a sphere of energy, he slammed against it, roaring, biting, clawing, but it held firm. Eli ran forward. Ignoring shouts behind him, "Let him go," he screamed, pounding his fists against the field. The lead soldier stepped out of the ship, tall and covered in a dark mask. He looked at Eli and said flatly, "You were never part of this equation." Eli spat at his feet. "Then rewrite your equation." Behind him, Commander Drex aimed a portable disruptor at the field's generator. "Move, boy," he said sharply. Eli dove aside just as the weapon fired. The generator exploded, and the energy sphere cracked open like glass. Rock burst out with a roar that split the trees. He didn't kill the soldier who had trapped him. Instead, he stepped over to Eli and lowered his head, letting the boy climb on his back. The battle wasn't over. More ships descended, black clouds of machines spilling from their hulls. But now, the colony stood united, and at its front rode a human boy on the back of a living legend. Aliens who once hid from the beast now followed him into fire. Bullets and plasma filled the sky, but the strange alliance pushed forward. Rock tore through machines like they were paper. Eli guided him with short, calm words. They weren't rider and mount, they were partners. By nightfall, the enemy ships were in retreat, the forest burned, but it was still standing. Bodies lay silent, and smoke curled into the stars. The battle was won, but peace had a price. Eli fell to his knees beside Rock, covered in ash and sweat. The beast curled around him protectively, breathing heavily. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to, because in that moment, the galaxy changed again. The boy who played with death had become a warrior, and the monster they feared had become a guardian. Asterisk, the boy who taught a beast to smile. The war ended not with an explosion, but with silence, thick, strange silence. Where even the forest paused to breathe, smoke rose gently. From the scorched trees, ash floated like snow through the cracked sky. But no more shots fired, no more orders shouted, only the quiet sound of life returning. In the center of the clearing stood the boy and the beast. Not as a weapon and its wielder, but as 2 survivors who had saved each other. Eli's clothes were torn, his face smeared with dirt and blood, but he stood tall, one hand resting on Rock's thick fur. The beast's side rose and fell slowly, wounded but strong. Around them, aliens and humans moved together. They weren't enemies anymore. They were a people who had been protected. It was Drex, the scarred alien commander, who walked up first. He kept his weapon down and his head low. "Boy," he said carefully, "I think you've changed the meaning of what we fear." Eli didn't smile yet. He just looked at Rock and whispered. He was never the monster. The colony's engineers arrived within hours. They scanned Rock's body, not for threats but to understand him, the weapons embedded in his bones. The armor fused to his spine. They saw the work of monsters not in the beast but in those who built him. One young medic named Jury, with soft pink skin and nervous hands, asked Eli, "Can I try to heal him?" Eli looked at Rock, who blinked slowly. "He trusts me," Eli said, "and I trust you." Jury knelt beside the beast, whispering gently as she worked. She removed twisted wires, cleaned cracked metal, and applied healing salves. Rock stayed still through it all, never growling, never flinching. He was learning something new: care. For days, the colony focused on rebuilding. But in the evenings, they gathered around the stream. That's where Eli sat with Rock, brushing his fur. Telling stories from Earth, he spoke of wolves and tigers, of big bears and brave kids. And Rock listened, his eyes soft and unblinking. One night, something strange happened. A child from the alien village, barely walking age, wandered toward Rock. Everyone gasped, expecting claws, a roar, some terrible snap, but instead, Rock lowered his head. The child placed a shiny rock between his paws, smiled, and waddled away. Rock looked at the stone for a long time, then gently pushed it toward Eli. A gift returned. Eli laughed, a soft, tired sound. "You're learning manners," he whispered, and for the first time, the beast made a sound no one had ever heard. Not a growl, not a purr, something between a sigh and a hum, a sound of peace. Eli froze, eyes wide. "Did you just smile?" he asked. Rock didn't answer, but his massive mouth curved slightly upward. The aliens watching whispered, stunned, because the beast who once broke bones now sat beside children as days passed. Word spread beyond the colony, other planets sent messages, some curious, some fearful. One council offered to buy Rock. Another offered to destroy him from orbit, just in case. Eli sent one reply: "He's not for sale. And he's not your problem, he's our friend." In time, an official treaty was written, not by generals, but by engineers, teachers, and even artists. They named the forest Ruck's Grove. And the beast was listed not as a threat, but as a citizen. Statues were built, showing a boy offering his hand to a monster. But those who knew the truth said it wrong. Eli hadn't tamed the beast. He had met him where he hurt, and stayed until the pain lessened. That was the lesson aliens didn't expect from humans. Not strength, not speed, but the terrifying power of kindness. Eli kept visiting the grove long after the war ended. He brought books, music, even paint. And Rock, the once lost weapon, began to change again. He no longer twitched at loud sounds. He no longer flinched at open hands. He played. Yes, played. He chased falling leaves, splashed in the stream, and once stole Eli's lunch just to get a laugh. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Eli rested beside him and asked, "Do you think you'll ever leave the forest?" Rock tilted his head, snorted gently. Eli nodded. "Yeah, me neither." They sat there together. Boy and beast, no chains, no commands, just quiet understanding. And for the galaxy that once feared him, Rock became a symbol, not of power, but of healing, because once upon a time, the most dangerous creature known to alien kind learned to smile. When the galaxy asked, "How did you do it?" Before the council chamber filled with voices, it filled with silence, a silence heavy with questions. And one boy, sitting in the middle of it all, holding a small rock in his hand, the first gift ever given to a monster. Eli had never spoken before a galactic council. He wore no uniform, no rank, no armor, just a simple shirt and the same dirt-scuffed boots he wore when he met Rock in the forest. The room was filled with alien leaders, some tall as trees, some covered in scales or feathers. They stared at him like he was a puzzle they couldn't solve. Because the reports were true, the galaxy's most dangerous bioweapon no longer attacked. He no longer roared at ships or broke bones for sport. He listened to bedtime stories. Wore necklaces made by children and laid beside a boy while the stars turned above. The question was simple. How did you do it? One council member finally asked, not with anger, not with accusations, wonder. Eli looked up slowly, then at the live feed showing Rock curled peacefully under a tree. His voice was quiet, but clear. "I didn't teach him how to obey," he said. "I showed him he didn't have to be afraid." The room stayed quiet. No one interrupted. No one dared. Eli continued. "You called him a weapon," he said, "but I never saw that. I saw pain. I saw a creature who had only been shown fear." Another leader leaned forward. "But you're just a child," they said. "How could you stand before something like him without trembling?" Eli paused, remembering that first growl, that first silent stare through the fog. "I was scared," he admitted, "but I was more curious. No one ever tried to understand him. Not once. Behind him, a large display screen showed clips. Rock lying in the grass while alien kids painted his claws. Rock resting with birds perched on his back. Rock curling around Eli like a shield when danger approached. These aren't tricks. Eli said, standing now. He chooses to protect us because someone finally protected him. The council whispered among themselves. One asked if the beast could be used for peacekeeping. Another asked if more creatures like him existed. Eli shook his head. He's not a tool, not a soldier. He said, he's free. One elder, older than any present, leaned on her staff and spoke for the first time. The galaxy has always feared what it doesn't control, she said. But today, it fears something even more rare. A bond that wasn't forged by chains but by trust. The chamber agreed. The votes were cast. Rock was no longer listed as a weapon. His status was changed to Guardian of Arcanine, his rights protected, his existence recognized. And Eli, just a boy from Earth, was listed in the Galactic Archives as the first to tame without force when he returned to the colony. A celebration had already begun. Lights glowed between the trees, tables filled with food. And music echoed across the forest. Aliens of all shapes danced, laughed, and sang. But Eli didn't stop at the party. He walked quietly into the grove, where Rock lay waiting beside the stream as he approached. Rock raised his head and gave a soft rumble. Eli sat beside him, leaned back, and looked at the stars. They asked how I did it, he said, smiling a little. Rock blinked slowly. His large body warm beside the boy, Eli reached into his pocket and pulled out that same shiny rock, the first gift. He placed it on the ground between them, then whispered, I think you saved me too. The beast didn't speak. He didn't need to. He simply laid his massive head in Eli's lap, and together they watched the sky move above them. Because while the galaxy had been busy building weapons, one boy had shown the universe that Bejewsly scamped. One boy had shown the universe that Bebizly scared Scasely. He simply laid his massive head. He simply laid his massive head in my/lap. And together, they watched the sky, my/Bytella, my ReXT, be wise/account, my/F, you see it, it was a doc to go up, I kib, by my slab/slad, I to see my sabol I be igrekayad. They sawena to sad be sabrias at it to easis sikapit to usla I stick you glay at side the reset is it to kitit it to papa kitit it sit up at is it this gated the juice even the most dangerous creature could be changed, not with violence, not with cages, but with patience, laughter, and a hand held out in peace. And long after stars burned out and history changed names, the story remained of a human boy. Feared monster, and the day kindness defeated fear. The end.